From beyond the farthest reaches of our galaxy they come. Two brains pulsing with a strange energy. These space brains come to share their love of science fiction movies.
And welcome to Space Brains, the show where we joy watch sci-fi movies and then talk about what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey, and this is Mark.
Hiya, it's episode 71, the first one for 2022, and tonight we are talking about sci-fi film Cosmos. Came out in 2019. In this episode, we're going to reveal what we thought about the film, the ins and outs of the narrative, plus some film language, and then a nice deep dive into a specific piece of science that the filmmakers are proposing. Cosmos was written and directed by brothers Elliot Weaver and Zander Weaver.
Yes, so turn back now if you haven't seen this movie, and then tune back in, because we're going to talk all about it. So warning. Those aliens are coming. Well, this film does propose that. It's about three amateur astronomers who are very perplexed when the newest member of their team intercepts a radio signal of seemingly impossible origin. What was your number one takeaway from Cosmos? My number one takeaway is that you can have... maybe it's a B story, maybe it's a C story, which is a love interest with an inanimate object. Now, later on in this film, there's a considerable drama and tension, and it does revolve around whether they should leave the mistress of one of these characters, Annabelle, behind, or if they can get her into the car as well with all of their equipment.
Oh, poor Annabelle.
Yes, Annabelle. Interestingly enough, also the name of the guy's wife. What was his name? Mike?
No, he wasn't Mike. He was Harry.
Harry, Roy, Mike.
I had to think about that.
Mark,
yeah. There's three big characters in this film. We've got to be able to get the names right. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it was very nice. I really did like the fact that they anthropomorphized this telescope at least a little bit.
Yep.
It was well done. In fact, this movie uses this sort of, what are you going to call it, totemic or let's say fetishization of objects. And I don't use that in the sexual term.
Oh.
But rather in the term of investing objects with greater power than what they would apparently have.
That's interesting, actually. I hadn't really thought about that too much till you're just saying that. Yeah.
There's a couple of key scenes, maybe heavily done, maybe not, but I really did appreciate that use of visual language and this, as I said, this imbuing objects with significance and storytelling capabilities, and they're not people.
And it's very realistic in terms of like, and maybe more so because they're men, but like, this, not infatuation is not quite the right word, but a bit of, like relationship with objects that you work with so much. So like these guys, like that one guy, Harry, he's got the telescope, so that's his mistress. But even Mike, Mike and his like software thing that he's developed, he's super invested in it to the point of it's not insanity or anything, but it's like it's almost like borderline
obsession.
Yeah. Like so it sort of makes it, I think, quite realistic. You have mechanics and they'll refer to the car as like women names and stuff. And some people might say that's sexist, but they're also like quite endearing, aren't they, to those objects? I
think it does speak to the way maybe men in, particularly I guess Western societies, what we're talking about, find they have to use proxies
for expression of emotion. Like it's perfectly fine for a sea captain to talk about his love of his fine lady ship, and he's married to the ocean. But you ask him about his woman, he goes, "Yeah, she's nice." How do you feel about her? You know, I married her, so
must be something there.
Tell me a bit more about your boat. Oh, the lovely lines of this proud lady as she leaps through the ocean waves, and I take on this strange accent.
The curves, the bends, the lines.
Yeah, I don't know. That's how sea captains talk.
Apparently, yeah, according to Surrey, that's how they talk.
So, though, tell me, Mark, was this a movie of hope, warning, or an experiment?
I think it's a nice little hope story, this one. It's it proposes that these guys, these everyday astronomers, discover something which is, possibly alien life. We don't 100% find out, but yeah, they find the spaceship. They're the first guys to find it. They've kind of beaten NASA to the punchline, so to speak, or the British Space Observatory or whatever it is called in this. And they, so the niceness there is like the everyday person finding this big momentous thing that's going to change human history. And so to me, it was hope. Like it was like these guys were hoping to get more out of all of this time and energy that they had pumped into their passion, so to speak, and their careers, and here they were going to get rewarded. So I felt like it was like hope that
Absolutely.
the everyday person at these guys, these guys aren't really everyday guys because they're obviously smart scientists, brainiacs. But I felt like there was a hope to it, and it's a very warm. And, we've warned everyone that we're talking about it at length. It's a very warm feeling at the end of this film versus, you watch a lot of these other films where NASA does discover the aliens. And, of course, what's going to happen is this huge alien invasion, cities get blown up. We've all seen those films. This film is the opposite of that. It's the sort of niceness of, like, discovering an alien race and kind of connecting to it, yeah.
Even Arrival didn't have that same sort of warmth to the ending.
Yep.
It was almost bittersweet.
Yeah,
the ending of Arrival.
Contact as well, which is quite similar to this film, actually, in a way. Like, it's the same sort of story. It was based off the Arecibo dish which received the I liked the Arecibo message itself. And during that time, during the late 60s into the 70s, it was such a positive, hopeful idea about space and about the fact that we're going out there and it's a new frontier. It's exploring and discovering like the moon without fear of, destroying someone else's culture because the moon is empty. But there's always this idea that we could meet someone or something that could teach us something. Yeah. And the Arecibo message was sent out. It was sent out just as a test of the Arecibo dish. Mm-hmm. But it was in hope because it was like, well, if we're just going to send a message, it could just be testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Just to prove we can do it. Yeah. But instead, they sent, the message which we see in this story. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And following on from that, we had a few other various, the SETI program, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, was established in the 70s. I better check that. But, hey, if you're a SETI worker... Yeah, references. Let us know.
Yeah, let me know.
But there is a hope here.
I've got the number on the computer screen behind me. I just can't be able to turn around and look.
Yeah, there is a hope here. There's a hopeful ending here. And, I felt good at the end of this film. What was your first impression?
My first impression was that because I know it was an ultra low budget, right? And you can tell, like, there's 3 primary actors and there's, like... one voice that we hear once or 2 sentences from, and then there's Dave at the very end that we sort of meet. Yes. But it's 3 guys, a car, and a forest. Yep. But watching it, the orchestral cinematic orchestral sort of sound at the start, the
soundscape,
and the way it panned across the dark and the cosmos came out, it did give me a feeling. I was like, "Wow, this is not a cheap looking film."
No, not at all.
And it made me quite hopeful and interested to know more about it because there's inexpensive and then there's cheap. Yeah. And this was an inexpensive film. Mm-hmm. It was quite well made in that sense. So I I took a little while to figure out where the filmmaker was going with this, and I'd love to go talk to these Zander and Alex. I wanted to say, oh my God, Elliot
and Zander.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, Elliot. My son is named Elliot. I should have remembered this.
That's why you're going to keep calling him something else all night long.
Yeah, Big Boy. That's what I call my son.
Okay, all right.
I just remember Big Boy Weaver.
Yeah.
Which is anyway. So I was saying that they did this good, and I'd like to ask them if I've got it right.
Yeah, definitely.
Or close to what's right, what they're sort of going for. But yeah, my impression there was it was a slow-paced, slow burn sort of movie, builds to a crescendo, and by the time the end, I got that hopeful, bubbly feeling.
Yeah, me too.
End. It was good.
Yeah.
And so tell me though, what about you? How did you watch this?
I watched this via. So we got special access to this, didn't we? Sorry.
Yes.
We had a special access pass because of spacebrains. They're moving up in the world here. We got access to this film. I believe that you can watch this on a lot of the video on demand is the word, isn't it? Sites like Amazon, etc., Google. I'm pretty sure you can get access to this film, so you can go rent it pretty cheaply or purchase it if you want to get a DVD. Who has DVDs anymore? But you can do one of those devices, but we had it. So I just basically watched it on my laptop just because of timing, etc. But I really was thoroughly drawn in, bit like what you were just saying in terms of the quality of the film very early on. And then I started to feel the pace of the narrative. So later when we get to the narrative, I do want to sort of talk about that. But yeah, from a filmmaker's point of view, I thought it was really beautifully shot. The lighting kept me intrigued. The music was amazing and the soundscape really pulled me in. The colouring also had a bit of a mid-80s feel, very similar to kind of something like E.T. Like there was a bit of a connotation to that. And then more recently, like the J.J. Abrams kind of stuff, there was probably a bit of a nod to that. And, again, from a filmmaker's point of view, like you're saying, like I knew a bit of context of this film being super low budget, like it was made with no money. I mean zero. And so I was like, as a filmmaker, I was going, wow, they've really, they've done that. And they've done, like I was kind of watching and appreciating the feel and the vibe of the film a lot. So I did come at it from that sort of perspective, which is maybe a little bit different than a general audience. But another thing as well was the science in it. The science was cool. Like they really described and they embedded some of the science into the dialogue, I think in a very smooth way. And I think a general audience would like that too. So yeah, I just watched it on a laptop and it was fine. It was perfect. Yeah, no problem. I think it looked good on a big screen as well.
The sound was great. I got some fancy new Sennheiser
hello.
Full ear covering sound producing vibrational things. Earphones.
Dolby Digital. remember when you'd see the Jurassic Park and then it was like that Dolby Digital, the train into the theatre. That's what you've got. You've got those Jurassic Park headphones.
Fancy. I've been meaning to do it because I'm trying to edit this audio and all the rest of it. Now I've got some decent cans at work.
Why is this film a science fiction, Surrey?
This film...
Like, what makes it a sci-fi?
It could have been not a science fiction film.
That's not my question.
But this one, the ending would have had to have been very different if it wasn't science fiction. Yeah. And this one's science fiction because it takes this premise of real science that we've done. We've really did send out a signal. Yeah. We really do track and monitor the stars, the skies.
Look at the skies.
Don't you hate when you try and say two words at once and neither of them come out? Yeah. And we do wonder if any of our messages we send out or anything we send out will ever come back to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And here we go. The Weavers have said, well, yes, let's say it does.
Yeah, that's the what if.
But let's say it's, more sort of, what do you call this? They're not recreational. They're semi-pro enthusiasts who discovered it, because there's been a number of astronomical discoveries that have been made by enthusiasts. And, high school students and university students and things managed to discover asteroids and comets and, planets. The first planet being observed was done by a university team, So it was just like this. Yeah, this isn't a big budget NASA or Royal Society, or CSIRO group.
Yeah, and even that science is not like a leap, is it? It's literally the science we pretty much are doing. It's a telescope.
It's a telescope and a guy listening on radio frequencies.
Yeah. On some funky headphones.
He's got a nice little bit of software which will real time render these frequencies for a view, and that's kind of a bit. It's not what you call groundbreaking.
Yeah.
But it is. It's novel. It's new. Yeah. It's an improvement on what we have. So if you took all of that out, you took the signal out and the rest of it, you've got three guys having a chat in a car, which would have made a gripping movie. They introduced a lot of drama through that.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have had that. The message of the film wouldn't be there. The hope, that feeling you get at the end, would all be gone. Because it would just, and you'd wonder why spend so long on such a simple story.
Yeah.
So you need that science fiction in there to make the story just that bit more gripping, a bit more mysterious, a bit more interesting, and to really tie in and that message of hope and understanding and outreach.
Yeah. I mean, a what if these normal guys discovered the aliens? So let's like hone in on the night that they discover the aliens, right? Like instead of it being the alien invasion, instead of it being the next day, like we've made contact, it's like this is the night of them discovering them.
And it's a really ordinary night and set of interactions. They're not in the midst of defusing a nuclear bomb. They're sort of doing their thing.
Yes.
So what about the science fiction did you like?
For me, that message, what's the name of the message?
The Arecibo message.
Yeah. The fact that the aliens send that back to us, but their version of it. I thought that was a really nice little touch of it. They clearly explained to the audience that message, and I've seen it. I don't know much about that message, but I've seen it in other films.
Yes,
so I know about it. And Contact's probably one, and a couple other films. I've definitely seen them talk about that message, and I've seen that coding before displayed, and so it was interesting that then it was a great moment in this film where they get the binary code and then they're deciphering it and the computer's loading it down in that old-fashioned line by line, and it's pretty much identical, isn't it? And then it starts to change a bit as we get about 2/3 down the page, and then it does. You can clearly see that it's significantly different. Not drastically different, but significantly different. And you're like, I was like, that's a really cool bit of sci-fi. So that's taking to me, this is one of those really great examples of like, here we are in Earth 2022, and this is our kind of science capabilities, our technology capabilities. What if we ran into aliens and it's just pushing it to another little realm? And you and I have watched through Spacebrains. We have watched a lot of sci-fi films where that science is taken to a whole new realm, like something that is really fantasy in a way, or really pushing a realm. I quite like this idea where it's just another degree off what we already have. Like you said, the software that he has as well. Maybe that could even be invented right now. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure, but it's just another step away from where we're at, right? And that's kind of cool. It makes it feel like it's much more embedded into our society as is.
Yes, it could be happening right now.
There could be three guys in a car and they've got that version of the software, and you know how it is. You're in IT, like there's guys out there building this stuff that's just prototypes, and in 10 years' time it will be an app, but right now it's just the prototype. It's the crude prototype, but they're out there using it.
What about what have we been doing recently? we've had a big break, a festive break.
We had a
Here
festive break.
in sunny Mandurah. It was very sunny for the Christmas period.
So sunny that the power went out.
It was, and I was out at my mother-in-law's little farm, where it's another 3 or 4 degrees warmer yet.
Yes.
So it was well above 40 degrees, 42, 43, 44
And did you
degrees.
notice today, I'm going to forget the town, but somewhere in WA, it was the hottest day ever on record in Australian bureaucratic standards, if I can say the word, which I can't. But yeah, it was like the hottest day ever, 50.5 degrees or something like that.
Cooking eggs.
Oh, goodness gracious. But yeah, we had a really hot summer. But yeah, Space Brains had a little pause, had a little festive break. And now we're back ready to hit the saddle running because that festival is coming.
The saddle running.
Yeah, hit the saddle running. So it's already stomping down the road,
That saddle.
flying, just flying. There's no horse.
It's a science fiction saddle.
Yeah, that's right. It's just flying. You just got to hit it, smack it, whilst you're running.
Okay.
Like that's the image.
I think we've taken that as far as it's going to go.
Yeah. But anyway, we've got the festival coming up really soon.
We do.
May.
We're booking presenters.
Looking for presenters, filmmakers, artists
we're
in the
booking,
sci-fi
yeah.
world.
Photographers, and
Yeah.
we've got the venue sorted out.
Yep. Beautiful
we're
man
just
pack.
dealing with insurance matters
Yeah, a bit of logistics.
because we don't want to have anyone get hurt and not be taken care of.
Well, look, think about it. The disaster could be we can make alien contact at the festival, and people get injured because the aliens don't really get us and they just sort of
Because
stomp around the
they
place.
send us saddles that we don't keep running.
That's right. Exactly. So, but you could imagine that, couldn't you? Like us, like imagine if you walked into a village and didn't really know, and then like you stood on someone's house. It'd be the same with the aliens coming here. Like they could like land and just like smash Manpack and go, whoops, whoa, we didn't realize the lasers.
Well, we should do Galaxy Quest because that's
Yeah.
what happens at the end of Galaxy
Yeah.
Quest, isn't it?
So we need the insurance for those purposes.
Insurance, yes.
Yeah.
So other than that, though, there's a new film festival website.
Ooh,
it's
exciting.
Coming along. It's not fit for public viewing just yet. I mean, if you're really sort of cunning, you could probably figure out how to view it. And by the time you're listening to this, it is probably fit for viewing.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
Awesome. We've gotten more submissions, so keep them coming. We're in the late deadline now. I think you got till the end of January for the late deadline.
January 31.
And then there's a sort of little extra bonus deadline, maybe for another month
If you sling
after
us
that.
a few extra dollars, we'll look at your film type of thing. Because we're running out of time.
Yes, we are. No, but still, there is enough time, especially if you're local. It'd be great to have still some Mandurah entries.
Mandurah entries, get into it because being a Mandurah local, you would be able to get the opportunity to turn up and get the red carpet treatment. You'd be able to talk to other filmmakers and professionals.
Definitely.
And yeah, it's a great chance then to get some credits, film credits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you have any time off where your creative brain got a bit of a run for its money?
No, but it did recharge, and I'm chock full of ideas. So I'm getting back to. There's all of these works that I wrote. So I got a creativity injection via my wife, as it turns out, as she's decided that she's going to become an author.
Okay.
And so she's writing books now.
Awesome.
She's outlining her first one right now.
Yep.
We'll find out where that goes, but it's made me think, geez, I've got like 5 novels sitting on my hard drive that just need to be a bit more editing and maybe shuffling around a bit. And I've got another book that I'm going to release anyway. So
yeah, do it.
So you can see them coming out soon, I'm sure.
And we do also want to add a bit of more content from Space Brains as well. We want to put out. You and I have spoken about so much of this knowledge base of sci-fi and films. We've got to put more out there.
I've got 4 blog posts written sitting on my computer as well, waiting to be
published,
reviewed,
basically,
edited and published. And then of course we're coming up with some video content, so a YouTube experiment.
Yep.
Or maybe warning. Warning. Yes. So that'll be exciting. You'll be able to see our beautiful podcast-worthy faces.
Oh, and the one thing that we did do on the break, which we've done the last couple of years, is the little Sci-Fi film festival, which was all about the Doctor Who
The
series
Genesis of the Daleks.
Yeah, that was great. That was a great night, wasn't it?
What a fantastic night there. So thank you very much to Sean.
Yeah, he runs. There's a guy here, Sean, in Perth. He runs a little film festival. Everyone's welcome. It's very communal. Bring a plate. He has a little chat about sci-fi in general and what he's going to play. Last couple of years, we've seen you and I were sort of brought over to the dark side of Firefly.
Yeah, Serenity was there in Firefly.
In that first year, and then last year was a real eye-opening or eye-popping experience of Brother from Another Planet.
Brother from Another Planet, Mother.
That just blew my mind. And then it was amazing to go even further back in time and watch this Genesis of the Daleks and how amazing that is, like that little series, 6 episodes, I think about 25 minutes per episode. I'm not sure where he got access to that, whether it was on one of the streamers. And I was really, because look, to be honest, and maybe you can shoot me down over this, I've seen a lot of Doctor Who, but I am not one of those huge avid fans of Doctor Who. Just I've never been. In fact, my wife's probably watched a lot more Doctor Who than I have over her childhood and stuff, but it was there for me and I watched it, but it wasn't something I totally got into. But watching that 6-block episode of the genesis of it, it was incredible, especially for the time, and you again, like tonight we're talking about low budget UK. That was low budget UK sci-fi and just done so well. Like you could take that and make a modern version just shot for shot of that and chuck it on Netflix. It'd be a massive hit these days. Like, it'd be huge.
Yeah, you could almost like have a new Doctor Who series.
Like, that's what I mean. You could just do a whole another series, a new Doctor Who. They kept using that Doctor, didn't they?
Yeah. That's the only Doctor there has ever been.
I think so. Yeah, that's the last time I watched it was the 60s.
Okay, well, let's get stuck into the film then.
We should, yeah.
Because
yeah.
Because we're going to go through. We'll talk about some of the plot there, some of the film techniques, the symbolism, narrative, camera lighting. We sort of mentioned that these things are worthy of talking about already. We're going to have a bit of a talk through the sort of structure as well.
Yeah.
But Mike, how about you give us a bit of a brief overview of everything?
So the Weaver brothers, Elliot and Zander, are behind this. Little bit of trivia. They were out and about in their early 20s trying to sell or pitch a really expensive sci-fi film. And they got people interested, but the finances kept coming back to them saying, yeah, but you haven't made a feature yet. Why don't you go make a feature? And after, I guess, a bunch of these rejections, they decided, well, why don't we just make a feature? So that's the point of Cosmos, was they went off and wrote and then spent time planning and then actually producing and making Cosmos purely really for the intention to show what they had in their arsenal as filmmakers. So the intention of this film was to make a guerrilla-styled feature film with no budget, and we mean no budget. They paid for food and a bit of petrol. But literally, hey, chuck a couple of actors in a room, 3 actors in a car, and I'm on camera, you're on sound, and mum's doing a bit of makeup, and we have a film. And that's literally what they did. It took them 5 years to make this film. So from that initial idea through to post-production, they did all the post-production themselves on a bunch of computers in their home studio. The only thing that really they got outsourced that came in at the end was the score, so the music. So they got a guy in to help them do the whole score.
They did well with that score,
and they did very well with that. No one was paid; it was all done out of love. They spent a whole month in a home garage shooting all the scenes inside the car, where every night they would just film. They'd put up black stuff on the windows and the garage doors, and they just film all day long or all night long, and then they have to pack all that down every night. And so because the garage had to be used for its garage purposes. So this film is one of those complete guerrilla styled filmmaking. When they're out in the forest, they used
their iPads and iPhones and, you know, torches to light the scene. They didn't use professional lighting. They didn't have lighting kits or anything like that. You know, they just used what they had. They built a rig themselves for the camera. They used a wheelchair for dolly shots and moving shots. The car chase scenes were all done themselves. Like that, this was done that old school Robert Rodriguez 10-minute film school style. So if you're a filmmaker, this film is worth looking at and studying, because how on earth did they make such a high quality looking film for $0?
That's, well, yeah, I mean,
and that's surprised. A good question. Yeah.
I'm surprised because when I was going into watching this, I'd heard these things, but I didn't look too much into the background of Cosmos. I have had some little email back and forth with Elliot and Zander, you know, about the fact this film and our film festival, which is quite good. But I went in blind, and
me too.
As that just the opening sequence of panning across the sky, that mysterious music and Cosmos appearing.
Yeah.
And that was magical. And I went, oh, that really, can they back this up?
Yeah.
Because that's like a real slick opening.
It is.
And they did.
They did.
It's very good. So who are the actors in this?
So we've got Tom England plays Mike Webster. Joshua Ford plays Harry Knight. Arjan Singh Panam plays Roy Kennedy. Yeah. And Ben Vardy kind of, he's a bit on the phone, isn't he, early in the film, and then he's right at the end, plays Dave.
Bennett. Come on, kill me, Bennett. Mr. Knife Bennett. Sorry.
It was filmed in Birmingham, UK, as we said, in a forest, in a carport, and on a couple of roads. Like that, literally, that's all they shot. Like that's all. Yeah. The box office and the budget. Now, they did end up having a couple of $1,000s that they had crowdfunded and stuff, but essentially all they really paid for was food and petrol for the actors. They did everything themselves, like I was talking about before. They had to take on a whole bunch of those roles. Their mum came in and helped with continuity and etc. As we talked about, even like lights. They had a little basic smoke machine they'd bought off eBay that they just kept using and to make everything a bit smoky.
Yeah.
You know, black plastic on windows, you know, a car. It was their car that they kitted out. Like it was all...
not an expensive car.
No,
right?
And it's not an expensive car either. So all of that sort of stuff, the budget was next to none. And they sort of talked about that. Yeah, there was either equipment that they already owned or had, or they borrowed, the old beg, borrow, steal sort of thing. But yeah, they just committed to making this film from the outset. There is no real box office. It did get a worldwide video on demand release. They did actually get sold. So the film got on-sold that way, distributed. And so that was a huge success for a total independent film, really. And it is, as I said, I think pretty sure it's available on Amazon. Not sure about Google, but yeah, check it out. Google it. Their website is extremely thorough, and I would, if you're a filmmaker or someone really interested in it, you can go there. There's behind the scenes stuff. There's merchandise if you really want to get into it. They've also had a couple of like subsections come out of the film that are on the website, so go check it out. They explain a lot of their processes of making the film, and then also what the film was about and why they made it. So yeah, definitely go check out if you want to learn more about it.
I will.
So we do like to break our narrative down. So we're going to go through some of the key parts of Cosmos. Obviously not every scene or anything, because you should just go watch it yourself. But we'll break down into some common elements that we like to talk about every week or every episode that we consider to be good story, good script writing. This comes from people like Campbell and Snyder and McPhee and Field. And the base element is a 3-act structure. And then that's broken down into maybe some specific scenes or what some people call beats. So, sorry, what's Act 1 about?
Beats.
Get the beats going.
Act 1 is about... primarily, it's about establishing the world that we are entering into. Mm-hmm. It sets up some rules. We have an opening image. Mm-hmm. And the opening image will set... it'll set a bit of a tone. It'll get you in that feeling. Often it's a sweeping moving shot or some kind of like something that establishes where you are. We have some theme set up so that we know what this film is going to start talking about, and then something that's quite important in this Act 1 is the catalyst or the inciting incident. So I like to think of it, it's that point in the film where the light switches on and you know what this film is going to be about. Yeah. It may not be about that, but you know where you have an idea of where this film is going. Yeah. You know it's going to be a detective story. Yeah. You know it's going to be an escape story. You know it's going to be an unraveling a slow mystery like this one.
Hopefully that moment is also like whatever we are being told the setup of the character and the world, that then that moment is compelling, that then, you and I, the audience, is going, ooh, we want to know what happens here. Like you want it to be juicy and tasty. And
look, I always use
I'm
Spider-Man.
hungry now.
Spider-Man, the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. Yeah. I always use that. It's such a perfect example of this situation, because in there we go straight in, we're shown, here's Peter Parker, he's at school, he likes MJ, he's got, James Franco, whoever, I can't remember what his character's name was, is his friend, he's bullied. Yeah. He's a bit of a photography nerd. And then he gets bitten. We're told about this spider, how it's super, and we know, we're going to a movie called Spider-Man. We know what's happening. And he gets bitten. And we go, this film, and he's like, this is the beginning of the inciting incident, and he wakes up and he's a bit awkward. Yeah, he just has that first awkward scene, and like that's the whole inciting thing. It was like, this is going to be about him, becoming Spider-Man and figuring it out, and it's just exactly that. You get that, and then we go straight into Act 2 with Spider-Man.
Yeah, and just on that as well, it's probably a good inciting incident, that one, because you could get bitten by a mutant radioactive spider and just die.
You could do. There was some jokes there saying like he went to bed with a golf ball sized lump on his hand after being bitten by a spider, rather than going to a doctor.
Yeah, that's right.
Some people have said it's because his life sucks so hard that he didn't mind if he died. Yeah. And other people sort of said, oh, well, clearly he doesn't have any health insurance. And, his aunt.
But that's great, right? No, but all of those things that are being suggested there, like that tells you about him as the character. Yeah, he's poor. He doesn't have money to go to the doctor. Maybe his life sucks that, if I don't wake up, well, I don't wake up, Yeah. So it's a bit do or die, isn't it? It's like this inciting incident's got to change my life. Yeah. But anyway, we do roll into the second act. And the second act is about taking that story through and going, okay, well now Peter Parker actually does wake up. He didn't have to go to the doctor, and he's kind of got some superpowers. So this is where we get some fun and games. He can climb up a wall. He can jump off buildings. He can, sprout white gooey stuff out of his wrists.
Out of the palms of his hands.
And then it grips onto another building. But then when he does that, he just whacks into the building. So it's like, it's the fun and games of him learning to be Spider-Man. So that's the whole point here in this second act of any film. It's like, it's the fun of the film. And some people like Blake Schneider call it, this is really where a trailer is born. When you see those trailers, they kind of should come from this part of the story. We also might have a B story, like a love story or a friendship developing. And that basically plays out until about halfway through, which is that right on the midpoint. The midpoint then needs to say, hang on, you got bitten by a spider. You've been mucking around with your gooey web stuff. You've been swinging around the city. You've helped an old lady, whatever. But now it needs to get a bit serious, right? Like now you need to take this a bit more serious. Like what are you going to do now with the fact that you're a super Spider-Man,
What do you do with this great power?
What are you going to do with this
great power? You're going to have great responsibility?
Yeah. So that's the midpoint. And sometimes it's an upper and sometimes it's a bit of a downer for the main character, depending on how the premise of the story. But either way, the midpoint there, it serves as a bit of a reminder that you're halfway through the story. It really should get a bit more serious. What quite happens after that is some of the terminology does suggest some negatives for the main character. So it could be that the bad guys close in. We have an all is lost moment. We have a dark night of the soul. And all of these are just basically scenes or beats where for Spider-Man, things are getting worse and worse and worse for him. And it's very obvious in a film like Spider-Man because you also throw in some sort of crazy villain like the Great Green Goblin, who's also causing problems for Spider-Man.
He's hitting his saddle running. I mean,
Yeah.
That's what he's got, isn't he? Sort of flying saddle thing. I
Yeah.
guess.
He's got a flying saddle. That's right. That's what I was talking about. Sorry.
He's hitting Spider-Man running.
He's whacking him on the butt as he's riding his little flying saddle. But yeah, I mean, for any character, if it's like the great movie Die Hard, you know, it's like he might win a little bit and take down a bad guy, but then at the same time, the bad guys are progressing on their agenda. Or, you know, if you're climbing a mountain, you're in these parts, this is where you're running out of food, you're running out of water, the person you're climbing with decides not to go on, but yet you still want to climb that mountain, you know, and so that kind of leads us to that point of the character has to get to a bit at the end of the second act where they decide, should I push on? And it's got to be another crux moment, a bit like that first act where should they go on? So if you're climbing the mountain, do you really go on to the apex or do you decide, do you know what? I've done pretty good. I've done all right. I'm going to back on down. Spider-Man.
Time for the film to finish.
Do you know what? The Green Goblin can fly his little saddle around and I'll just go off and hang in the suburbs. We can live amicably together, can't we?
He'll go live in the shed.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right.
Spinning with little webs, looking after pigs.
Do you know what? Great power comes great responsibility. I don't want the responsibility. I'm fine.
But well, that brings us to Act 3, of course, because they do continue on. We do have the film.
Yeah.
It comes in. It's often then they gather up their resources. The hero gathers up his resources, makes a plan maybe, or commits to doing something.
Yeah.
That often doesn't quite work out.
Yeah.
Because they made the plan based on what they knew at the start of the film. But what they need to do is grow. They need to become that hero or become the villain or become whatever it is that they need to do. And there's a turn around before final victory. And then we get the final image, which often mirrors the opening image or gives us some insight into the way life is now. Yeah. Or the world, the way the world is, or the life, depending on whether they survive or not. Obviously, in Cosmos, they survive. But it gives us that idea of here's how it's going forward. And you can compare it to the opening where here's how the world is before anything's changed.
Yeah. I think a little homework assignment is to go back and look at Spider-Man because, to be honest, I remember the end image as him flying around New York, but I don't remember the opening image. I mean, it must be Peter Parker probably just being a nerd or something, I suppose.
Is he driving? He's not riding his scooter. That's when no, okay.
I don't know. That's a little homework assignment.
If you know the answer, let us know.
Go back.
It's probably going to be a little while before I watch the Spider-Man movies again.
So one thing I want to say, we're going to get into Cosmos is, and I've kind of been saying this, but yeah, the lighting's awesome. The camera work is awesome. The coloring is awesome. The sound effects and the soundscape is really awesome. To me, it felt very cinematic, this film. I think they wanted that. If you go look at the making of, they seemed that was a desired result. It does feel like filmmakers have made this. You know,
I got a strong Spielberg and Michael Bay somewhere in between those.
Somewhere, yeah. And for me, it was kind of like the 80s Spielberg and a bit of J.J. Abrams, which I know is also Spielberg-y sort of thing, but there was a Lost, you know, that kind of, we're in the forest, the lights and the torches and all that are very important. The colouring was definitely amped up, like more saturated in a good way. But I did notice, you know, they seem to have all these light sources and that was very interesting for me. So even when they're in the car, like the way the laptops were playing off the
That was
light.
really kind of, to me, reminiscent of like the opening sequence to E.T.
Yeah.
And maybe Close Encounters where there was sort of lights in strange places. That's sort of one of its keys. And you saw that in Stranger Things. They carried a bit of that in Stranger Things as well, having diffuse lights, but then a strong, harsh light.
Yeah.
You know, making some shadows twitch and shift. So you never actually. There's nothing. there's no action going on, but
Yeah.
it looks like there's action going on.
It is. It's just so much more cinematic. So, I mean, these guys did a great job. And if you're a filmmaker, it's worth looking at. So you've talked about the opening. There's a big pan across the sky. There's the Cosmos credits. Did you notice that then it kind of like pans and then the tree shadow kind of comes over and gets rid of the sky? And I actually thought, well, that's a little bit of, once you watch the film, there's a bit of foreshadowing maybe there because the alien spaceship is blanketing the sky.
Yeah, I think also what I noticed in this was that use of car lights going past over the trees, which, as it is that E.T.
Yeah, it's that vibe, isn't it?
Third Encounters of the Close Kind. Welcome to Witch Mountain with The Rock. You know what I'm talking about here. But yeah, it immediately gave you that sense that something big, mysterious, don't know, aliens. You're immediately thinking of aliens.
You're thinking creatures in the dark, right? Like there's some sort of creature. And this film, when you think about it, like we don't see the creatures, we don't see the aliens, but like they keep getting hinted at, right? Like they keep getting kind of discussed. So the start, it's a bit creepy. It's a bit of a creepy start, with the headlights and the torches. There's creepiness going on without it being actually some big creepy monster in the dark. And that's what's great about this film. When you jump to about the theme, to me, the theme was about friendship. But did you agree with that? Sorry, for me, the friendship was in the car. Yeah, there's a moment there between Harry and Roy, and so Mike is asleep in the back, and he says, "Oh, so he works at that company, Astros or something."
Yeah,
and he goes, "Oh, so you guys are friends?" And because Harry and Roy, we're getting this sense early in the film that Roy's got some issues. Harry actually doesn't really answer his question. He goes, "Oh, what? Is there a problem with us being friends?" And he's like, "Well, I could see that there would be problems."
Yeah.
And so to me, that itself was the theme. Like the theme was friendship.
Yeah, rejoining groups. Because the bonds that tie groups together.
Yeah,
because even in a way, the aliens responding.
That's right. Yeah.
To the Arecibo message, but also responding by echoing Mike's recording back to him.
Yeah.
Is that same sort of forming of a group? It's like here's something familiar, and here, look, we like this. And throughout this film, we continue to receive that same sort of message of two people getting to terms, two people coming to terms, three, and at the very end, four of them all, put their hats on and they're all happy.
And even the aliens, it's like, they send the binary back and it's, it's friendly, isn't it? It's the same as what we sent out, and it's not hostile. It's trying to connect. There's connection happening. Yeah. So maybe it's not friendship, maybe it's connection. I don't know. But to me, the theme here felt like it was about friendship. So this whole setup in this first sort of 10 or so minutes, we've got these three amateur, semi-professional astronomers. They've got their own sort of background. It was a little bit, to me, it was a little bit unsure. Like one guy, Mike, seemed to be working for that space company and he had set up, but then why they were out there was a bit more personal passion.
Yeah.
Why they were out there.
They'd worked for... at the start, it's not clear.
You don't quite know,
you don't know, are they being paid to get there? But you sort of get the feeling they're not being paid to be out there.
It felt like they were just doing it on their own back. And then definitely it comes across pretty quickly that Roy seems to have an issue with both Mike and Harry. The issue with Mike is something to do with the company. The issue with Harry is that he's with Mike. There's sort of a bit of a
and they've been apart for 4 months. There's been a gap.
There's a bit of a gap there. There's this reference to Harry says, "Oh, do you want to wear your special hat?" And there's a red hat that has astro nuts on it, and he says, "Nah."
Well, see, this is that interesting point I was talking about. The fetishization of objects in this
the hat
to serve the story, and the hat immediately. I got my little notes that I was taking there, which immediately said, "Oh, visual storytelling with this hat," because there was driving along there, and the camera shows Harry looks at the hat, and you go in and you can see it's like it's a bit worn, it's a bit weathered.
It's a worn,
and
weathered
then
hat.
Roy sort of also sees it. and there's a thing going on there, and so you're going, no words were spoken. There was no anything else. It was just a purely visual one scene.
And that's great.
Shot,
That's
shot.
great script writing.
And immediately that hat is central to their friendship and has some history. Even then when he sort of says, remember this? Did you bring your hat? And Roy says, I'm not wearing that.
Yeah.
And he gets out of the car. And so, it's you've been
the
told
hat means something,
The whole story has been told by 2 sentences and a picture of a hat.
Yes.
And
unlike many other stories that you watch and they'll be like, do you want to wear the hat? You know I don't want to wear that hat. That takes me back to a bad place.
Back to the time when we used to be friends.
Yeah. So instead of saying that, this film does it perfectly, which is like, are you going to wear the hat? I'm not wearing the hat. And he walks away.
Yeah, so
it says so much, doesn't it?
The hat now is carrying more than just...
It's not just a hat.
He's not just not wanting to wear a hat because it's nighttime. I mean, what's he going to wear a hat for? But yeah, he's clearly
rejecting
a symbol
him
of some prior relationship.
And we also find out in this setup that Mike is doing some sort of testing of new tech, but we're not too sure about that. So did you feel that you were aligning to any of them being a protagonist at this point in time? Sorry?
See, I had a bit of confusion as to exactly when this catalyst moment was because this movie is it's a hockey stick in that it's a very slow build-up.
It's a slow burn, yeah.
And at the end, it packs it all in.
Yeah.
So I was sort of looking, actually, I was trying to figure out what's that point where, I know what this film's about, because I was still waiting for it. And I found it was closer to the 20-minute mark, which is a bit late for the typical catalyst, but there was enough drama and action prior to this. And that was when he first gets his signal. Yeah. The blipping signal.
Yeah.
And then at 27 minutes, the satellite disappears. But I was thinking the blipping signal, and he's like, oh, that's really weird. Yeah. And he marks down the 1420.63 megahertz. And I thought, was the catalyst, as you said, where Roy is getting his gear and gets the music on, or was it when he first hears that alien signal, which is where you start going, this movie, it's not just 3 guys talking. It's something is external happening.
Look, I would agree with you that the sound is probably the obvious catalyst, but I also thought, well, the catalyst might be that Roy says that this is going to be the last time he's doing this. And the reason why, to me, that's the catalyst is because the theme earlier was like friendship. Yeah. And we're very clearly within that setup realizing that there's issues here in this friendship. They're not being friends for a while. There's distance between them, but yet they seem to want to connect. The hat symbol, the talking about this organization that Mike's working for. So to me, I did wonder whether, and it happens around the 12, 13 minute mark, is that Roy says, no, I think this is going to be it for me tonight. So it's almost like him as a character saying, our friendship is like, I'm done with this. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to move on from this. And so if the theme is friendship, then you got a character saying, I'm done with this friendship. It's almost like the death of the friendship there. And to me, that was a bit more of an inciting incident. But in terms of then listening for and finding a signal, you're right. Like, the signal comes in about 20 minutes. He hears the heartbeat sort of sound for the first time. He writes down the 1420. That would be more the logical, like, action inciting incident. So, yeah, it's I think interesting which one is which, or maybe it's not so clear to find.
It is a slow progressing film, and as interesting, you're talking about this being an examination or an example of what these filmmakers can do, and that was actually my revelation of this whole film. By the time we get into the third act, I was going, this is an enormous show reel. Like, this was like, how can we demonstrate all of our skills and all of the skills of creating a movie. So they have a slow, building tension opening, which just seems to go on, and you're going, oh, there's something's going to happen. Something. Yeah. There's friendship tensions going on. There's relationship tensions there, but then there's this signal in the background, but then later on in the film starts throwing in, oh, here's some action elements. Okay, so there's that drama and tension, a bit of Hitchcock. Here's a bit of action and, that sort of heroic drama. Yeah. And so on. And so this catalyst being spread out over 10 minutes, it fits into that, because there are plenty of movies where the catalyst isn't a 30-second snip at 12 minutes. No. There's a lot of movies where it is like maybe a minute, from 12 to 13 minutes, a scene or something happens which does the whole deal in. But a well-made film can go over more time.
And when you actually do the helicopter view of this story, their approach could just be a bit different to what we're analysing here as well. So instead of it being more like, oh, at the 12-minute there needs to be that catalyst, it's more because when you look at the whole when you look at the whole story, they do have a very clear one act, which is these three guys are together, they have relationship issues, and then they're listening for sound, and one guy gets a sound, right? And so at the end of the first act, he's hearing and noting the sound beat, right? So that's just an act. So instead of it being more like the way you and I are looking at that, the whole film, you need this inside and instant, then they might be more looking at, well, the one act is the setup. Yeah. Guys out there listening, they hear something. The second act is trying to prove that it's real and convince others that's real. And then the third act is we've got to get that back to headquarters and document that, we actually have heard aliens, So when you look at it a little bit differently, it works. It works just in a different way.
Yes, indeed.
So anyway, we have that debate. He does hear the sound. He also shares the pictures with Roy, so he's sort of slowly bringing Roy over to Mike's side, his little software, and he goes, oh, there's something wrong because there's this big thing on the picture that doesn't make sense, which later we find out is the actual spaceship. Yeah. But he's convinced that his software is not right. He also hears some other things on the radio, and Roy is extremely tense. So when we break into two, to me, this is what I'm saying, a little bit differently to how we're analysing things. We break into two, he hears the beat again. So to me, this is like a real break, a fork in the road, because he's like, oh, hang on, this sound. And he, this film, they did it pretty cool, didn't they? Because he kept testing it. He kept taking the signal away and then coming back and going, oh, no, well, I'm still getting the signal. Yeah. The only thing I was going is why aren't you recording? Yes. Why are you not recording?
Yeah, I know. Well,
it seems so obvious. Just record.
I'd have thought it'd been recording the whole thing all night, but what do I know?
Because sound doesn't take up much space in a computer. It really doesn't. If that's your job out there, you're trying to listen to things, you think you'd just be recording all night long. But anyway, maybe that's totally wrong. If you're an astronomer that listens out, let me know.
Well, if he's recording enough of the microwave and infrared and so forth on his dish in order to map, then it could be many millions, trillions of data points that he's pulling in, which could be the whole fascinating thing. There was that case of the photograph of the black hole, which took 12, 15, 25 petabytes or something ridiculous. They couldn't. The best way they could transfer the data was actually to put it on hard drives and ship it. Yeah, because trying to transmit it over the internet, it was just too much.
Too big, yeah.
It was too big. They had a truck of, a moving van full of hard drive that they shipped around the place.
So the fun in games to me in this is that this time it's he's hearing it. Is it for real? He shares it with Harry, but Harry can't hear it. Mike also starts he decides to record a message and send it off.
Yes. And that's definitely fun in games, because it was a little bit humorous. Things, we hadn't hit the midpoint, so things weren't properly serious. This
is all the fun. And because even Harry says, I remember last time you were speaking to the police, you picked up the police radio. So it's is he really picking up aliens, or is he just picking up something else? And
there's that whole mysterious signal that was picked up and it turned out to be the microwave oven door closing.
That's right. Roy's satellite, he's watching his satellite thing, and we have this moment where it blips off the radar, it disappears, and then really there Mike kind of offends him by questioning him like, who cares? It's just a radio, and they have like a really tense moment, and Roy chucks the shits, really.
Yeah, just a satellite.
Yeah, well,
Just a satellite.
Just a satellite. You don't know what you're talking about. Harry tells Mike about that. Well, actually, he created that thing, but the shit thing was the company you work for, shafted him, sacked him. So Roy does apologise, and this is what I'm saying, like that friendship theme is being more and more developed, and this time they come back together.
And well, this is that next object that was used as the cup of tea.
Cup of tea, yeah.
So the red hat was Harry and Roy.
Yep.
The cup of tea then was Mike and Roy.
Yep.
And the mints was Mike, Roy, and Harry.
Yeah.
As a group.
Yeah.
So that was I found that really interesting. Is that this cup of tea? Mind if I have a cuppa? And he says, "Oh, that was just my last one."
Yeah.
But then later on he says,
Have a cuppa.
"Here, have a cuppa." Oh, I thought it was your last one. No, and then he shares it, and they're like, "Oh, there's like." So that all of that meaning is put just on the sharing a cup of tea, like just because they did that, because of the earlier rejection,
Yeah.
that they've become friends without them having to say, "You know what? I think we're friends."
Yeah. That's right.
Don't get ahead of yourself, mate. I haven't had your mint yet.
That's right. I'm still not having a mint. But they do then sing a song together. They bring that song in. And so that's the midpoint to me. And it's an upper midpoint. This is those example that's like a bit of an up midpoint because they do sing that song together.
Yeah, they get and that's where I see this as a show reel of their skills, of their ability to write things into story. So they're using these objects to carry a relationship.
Yeah.
The classic song is just like a montage, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's like by having everyone sing a song together, you know that the group is bonding.
Yeah,
it's your little montage bit, and it's a funny little song that they're singing to, probably royalty free.
Yeah, and they did say in the behind the scenes that was written in kind of as they were filming because they came across that song. Like it wasn't something that they wrote originally.
Right.
They sort of found it. So you're probably right. It's probably a royalty-free song.
Well, it was a weird old song.
It was a weird old song. But it's a nice moment, isn't it? Because Mike starts singing it and the others are a bit perturbed. And then you see each of them sort of smiling and starting to kind of get into it, Yeah. And so, again, that's that subtle writing that we the actors are relaying so much information without saying anything, They're singing a song. So to me, it's a midpoint. It's an upper midpoint, which is great because quite often they do go the other way. But then this is where, to go into the next bit, the midpoint is that Mike receives a recording of his message and it's distorted. It's a bit scary. It's a bit creepy. It's kind of been twisted.
And it keeps saying, we are not afraid.
We're not afraid. Yeah. And it's got that distortion to it and repeating itself. And so I think as an audience, I don't know about you, sorry, but for me, I'm like, oh my God, aliens are communicating. And of course what happens is, Roy and Harry get back in. They're like, no, is it repeating? Is it a loop? Is it bouncing back? Why are you getting it and no one else is getting it? Which is classic bad guys close in anyway, because you have the main character going, no, this is real, and everyone's going, nah, it's not real. There's probably something wrong here.
Yeah, you're reading it wrong.
And to add to that, he rings Dave at it was a British radio scope centre or something. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
But
if you're British and you work at the Radio Telescope Centre for Radio Telescopes,
I just don't know who they are. Whereas it's so easy when you say NASA, right? We've been told so much about NASA, but he does call this guy, and he has a bit of access to this guy. He wakes him up out of bed and convinces him to check, and the guy checks and he has nothing. He has no message.
Got nothing.
Yeah.
Get back to me when you've got something.
Yeah. So then they decide, which is I think a good moment here, to decide to increase the signal. So Harry and Roy go off and they want to expand the triangle.
Well, see, this is what I was wondering also. Is this moving into, this is sort of heading deeply towards the third act? This is
but it's not quite, because to me the end of the all is lost is what happens right after that, because that's when he loses the signal and his computer gets tuned up. So his computer dies, right? Like, and they're all lost. All is lost. It means that someone should die. Something should die. It doesn't have to be a person. And in this context, the computer dies.
Yes, the computer got fried. I think the aliens boosted the signal a little bit too much.
And it's also like good before the third act, because like he's like going, oh yeah, like, so we can't convince anyone else that we're hearing this, but what we can do is get it in on 3 stations, and then that way, well, then it's proof because you've got 3 stations picking up the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, it's a way of convincing people that I'm right, you know. But it's a nice little moment, isn't it? Because they like Harry and Roy go off, and it's quite scary for Harry. There's creepy sounds in the bush, and
it's good because this is where they're starting to go, okay, so we've had when we're talking about our showcase here, the start off was the start of the film is all of this sort of relationship tension, a bit of social drama, a little bit of science in there, and then some humorous sort of good times,
definitely
the use of objects and so forth. And now we're moving to this going, oh well, we can also be a bit creepy, mysterious, and it was, just even just those bird calls and things where he suddenly stops, and where Roy sort of bangs on the window, and again, it's sort of, it's like the filmmakers are saying, we can also do this.
We
kind
could
of
make it a bit scary, You know? And there's a bit of humour in there as well, which is nice, always worth seeing. But that's where it did feel like E.T. and Cocoon. It didn't feel like alien scary. It felt like kids in the bush, kind of like, what are they going to stumble across? You know, like the torch is going to drop on the ground like E.T. and there's going to be footsteps running off into the bush, but you're not going to see what the bush, what the creature is, you know, like,
No, I didn't get the feeling it wasn't Night Beast.
They're not going to be like ripped apart. But it was interesting. And, so he does that, but then, of course, as I said, the oil, to me, it's a real, like, just when he's winning, the reception is great. He's got the triangular thing going on. Then, of course, we get this, like, interference, and then the computer system burns out. And this last bit here, which I loved, at the end of this act, going into Act 3, we get the time clock. Yeah.
And it's like it's a great big countdown.
It's a huge timer. Yeah.
It's just, the...
Which, on a side note, wouldn't that be chewing the battery up on its...
Well, it's one of those things in films, because up until now, the user interface he'd been seeing was really quite realistic.
Yeah.
And it even had the M. Webster software, like written in the top left-hand corner. Like, I really like the attention to detail on that software user interface. I went, that kind of looks realistic. It's got like, a bit of a, what do you call it, like a spectrograph at the bottom of it. And it's got like, nice sort of digital display of what frequencies listening to. And there's all sorts of things. And then, of course, the warning, 10% left, which my computer has never done. No. It usually just comes up with a rather unassuming little window saying, you got 10% left.
Yeah.
Plug your power cable in. And then, of course, you don't get three quarters of the screen counting down. But it worked really well. Because and they kept that, the old Leslie, I think Leslie Weaver, their mum.
Yeah.
She was continuity, did a really good job, because I was actually paying attention to percentage complete in the transfer and the number of minutes and how long. And it was about 20 minutes. It was going to take 20 to 21 minutes for it to complete the transfer.
Yeah.
And they had 18 minutes left. And sure enough, when it was at 33%, when it was 44%, I worked it out. It was staying close to being a 20-minute requirement. And so, like, that actually kept the percentage of file transfer compared to time left relative.
That's
which
good.
meant that at no point, because I was curious to see if there was actually a point where they didn't have to rush, it was going to complete. But no, they kept it going on that way. And this clock, it introduced this requirement. They had to have a plan. Like, this is like the bad guys revealed.
Yeah.
The bad guys revealed as being, we've got this amazing information, this data. It's got to be released. We can't lose it.
Yes. Yeah.
And because they still didn't know if anyone else was really receiving this.
No.
And they had a clock counting down to doomsday. and the car wasn't behaving itself, and there's all these sort of obstacles, and they had this plan, right? We've got to get back to the observatory. They've got this, power supply that we can plug into, and they'll also then be able to use this data, and the world will be a great place.
And we've got to pack the car, and of course we have to leave old
Annabelle.
wifey behind.
Yes, leave Annabelle. No. No. this is where I don't know if the Weavers were intending this to be a little bit humorous.
I think so. I think there's
the build up in the level of drama here, given the actual stakes.
Yes.
But it was delivered so well. Like these actors did such a good job of being able to say, you get the equipment, I'll start the car, and he runs out and grabs the folding chair or whatever it was, and it clacks out almost like he's pumping a shotgun or something.
Yeah. But it's the plan, right? It's the third act plan. It's like, we've got to pack up. We've got to pack our gear and get out of here as quickly as we can.
It's like Aliens, where they set up the auto guns and the turrets, and the aliens are crashing in, and they've got to crawl through the things to get places.
But they did it. There's a time crunch.
Yeah, and they had to struggle with these things. They jumped in the car. That whole thing was lovely.
I liked it. That's where we had invested our hour and a half of cinema, and we were going, we want these guys to win.
I was delighted that last half hour.
Yeah.
Because at the hour minute, I was sort of going, wow, this has got a considered pace to it. And then it got faster. It was like a hockey stick, and then it went faster. And then that last 20 minutes or whatever it is, it was just like rampant. Like, if there were, soldiers pouring in and a bomb about to go off, and then like the actual wife or husband or whatever was tied to the railroad tracks, it was that sort of level.
It was.
And as a result, I was smiling and enjoying like that little race towards the end, and the car revved, and they got the Fast and the Furious. I loved that.
Yeah.
The car revved. It's a crappy old looked like an old Toyota Lexus or a, I don't know what the equivalent is probably over there as I'll have to ask. I'll have to ask for what the car is, but. Yeah, you get the close up of the rev,
the whole car,
and it sort of shudders and vroom, vroom, like just straight out of Fast and Furious. It was, but it wasn't done over. It was done to the edge of over the top.
Yeah,
it didn't go into comedy, but it was right there, and I just carried along by that rush towards the end.
It wasn't comedy, but it was like us, the audience, going, yeah, come on, go. It created a... I don't know, you were cheering for them. You
almost said out loud, you're not losing your telescope. No one's going to come up and steal it.
No, that's right.
It's a 15-minute drive down there. You can drop off your stuff and come back again.
Just come back and get it. We'll still be sitting there in the middle of the night.
But no, and it's like, just leave the damn telescope.
That's right.
But that was exactly that point in a film where, someone is dangling and the important piece of information is about to drop off, but the monster is about to stab them in the back.
Right.
And you go, just leave it. But he doesn't.
He doesn't.
He gets it in.
So they go racing down the freeway, highway. They hit a couple of more obstacles, the blocked fence, the red light, the stop sign, the other cars, and the time clock is just ticking, as you were talking about, is perfect kind of ratio.
We got the wonderful Chekhov's gun.
We did.
Not only was it Chekhov's gun, but it was also a foreshadowing that it would be.
Yes.
Because, Roy was making room in the back, and he pulls out the loppers.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, well, that's for the telescope because sometimes the trees get in the way. You go, oh, that makes sense. But then he has that funny little claw gripper.
Yeah.
And then, of course, not long after that, Mike is trying to grab the microphone, to get the mic so he can record his own little message back to the aliens, and he's using the gripper to comedic effect.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that foreshadowing that those two items, the other item is yet to be used. It's like when James Bond gets his list of gadgets.
Yes.
You're always counting down, okay, he's used his watch, he's used the oil slick, When's he going to use the parachute
That's right.
balloon pen? You know, like,
And so they use that to like cut the lock to get through the gate and the shortcut. Race down the freeway, red lights, all that kind of stuff. It's really well done for no budget. You know, like you could see what they were doing.
considering they would have had to have begged to be able to. I don't know. I mean, maybe they just sort of did a few camera tricks to make it look fast.
I think they did. Yeah. No, they did.
Wonder if they told the other drivers that they were doing that. I think a couple of them they must have, but
I think you probably just. It was probably all three of them driving their cars down the road, and they just, one's going a little bit faster than the other two.
yeah.
That's the trick. And when they got to the red light, you'll notice that they didn't really go through a red light, but they made it look like they went through a red light. So it was well done. It was good. It was good filming. And they get in anyway. They come into where they've been ringing Dave, and they're saying, "Oh, we need this particular power source," and they fly into where the satellites are. And they get there with 10 seconds left, and Dave comes running out through the car park, and Mike runs through the car
why
park.
they didn't drive up to the door?
I know they didn't. They could have definitely driven closer, but anyway, that's the tension, right? That's the tension. They have the run, and they get this power source. They run back, and of course, like then even when he goes to he plugs one in really quickly, the other one doesn't go.
That cracked me up.
It's like he's missed it.
I laughed out loud at that. Where he gets it and he rubs them together and gets the sparks.
They get this. Got to prove that it's alive, right? Like it's a proof.
First one's on. Right, get the second one on. I'm getting the second one. It won't go on.
It won't go on. And
why won't it go? I just put it on.
I know.
But it was
great. Yeah, it's nail biting stuff.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so then they get it on with about 10 seconds that the hard drive is okay. It's saved. The recorded first contact. Dave informs them that actually all over the world people are locking in on it, but realizing that these guys had the first contact, and so they will be the first ones. And then all the satellites are kind of like directed towards where the spaceship is, and they're beeping away. And the guys say, well, what's going on? He says, oh, look, all over the world, we're sending them the one message, which is welcome to Earth. So it's, here they've kind of like come as a team to get there. And then now it's like, even with the aliens, it's friendship. We're reaching back out to them. We're not being nasty.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, so there's a nice moment.
The hero
there.
shot, and they all pull out their hats.
Yep.
Because we've heard this mystery of the third astronaut.
Yeah.
And it turns out it's Dave.
It's Dave.
Yes, which is how come he was so accommodating at such an odd hour of the morning.
Yeah. And they all stand there with their hats, and they look at the satellite, and they look at the sky, and then we get a light from this alien, and it's very epic. It's very built up, and, it's a beautiful shot of them in front of these huge satellites and the alien, which was kind of like in the title Cosmos, and yeah, that's the end, isn't it?
It was beautiful.
It is really beautiful.
And of course, we spoke, which episode was it? We're talking about making first contact and the protocol for contact. So if you're the first person to have made the first discovery.
Was that the Beyond?
No, it wasn't that long ago. But anyway, yeah, if you remember, there's like a multi-point protocol for if you discover. But if you're the first one to discover it, you're the one who gets to announce it to the world. Remember, that's right. The significance. It's not just, the scientific community says great, but the idea is that the scientific community gets behind you and says, you get to announce this to the public.
Yeah.
So, that's got to be pretty chuffing. I mean, it's going to be good to be able to say, I discovered a new Earth-like planet 27 light years away from us.
Yes.
Alternatively, you get to sort of say, I spoke to aliens.
That's right.
Yes.
And here they are, blowing us up.
And by the way, those police I spoke to last, sorry, but, now I got it right.
So we have our ladder where we put the films on, sort of recommending maybe where you should view it in the order of all the films we've looked at so far in Spacebrains. So for me, Surrey, I've got Gantz in there about middle of my ladder, and then I'm going to put Cosmos after that, and then followed by Doomsday and Equals. I think that would be kind of like a really interesting film, Cosmos, to watch after Gantz Zero. That's a bit disturbing. The anime, Japanese anime, but great film, but yeah, if you watch that, then you kind of watch this, is much more kind of toned down and peaceful and also, hopeful. And then to kind of then move into something like Doomsday, which is much more violent, Mad Max, apocalyptic, would be quite different. How about yourself? Where are you putting it on your
I was very much considering having it near The Beyond.
Yep.
It has a very similar feel.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of scientific discovery of aliens, friendly,
Yep.
as a thing. And I've just got to find it, but I didn't put Next at Beyond. Despite that being a good spot. Jeez, we've got 55. This is our 55th episode in the non-classic section.
That's a lot now, isn't it?
So it's getting hard. Now, I was thinking it up there with Love and Monsters and Dark City, between those two.
Yep.
So that's in the 35, 36. And, Dark City has, it's dark.
It is dark.
But it does have a hopeful ending.
It does.
Love and Monsters a little bit more so. I just thought this would be a nice trilogy to get you through.
Trilogy of Hope.
Trilogy of Hope, but they each have a very different tone to them.
Yeah, they do.
So it's you're not being overwhelmed by it, but there it is.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, Love and Monsters has a bit of a kind of little bit of that has a comedy tone, and this has a little bit of comedy in it as well. So I can see a bit of a connection.
Yeah, and I think it's getting harder and harder to be able to sort these out.
Oh, it is.
We may have to come up with a new sorting.
We may
break them into subcategories.
The sorting hat.
Perhaps it's sort of like, okay, so here are the light-hearted hope. Here's the dark experimental. Here's the action
creepy
warning.
Monster ones.
And then we have like a ladder which is like, random number generator to pick one out of this topic, 3 out of that one, then 1 out of that, and then I don't know. You could make your own playlist and get Spotify to do it.
You really could. So let us know where is it on your ladder? Yeah, hit us up. Tell us. Or do you agree or disagree where we're putting ours on the ladder? All right, let's delve into some of the science of this film. Now, this is one of these ones we've looked at a lot of films now as well, Surrey, where in some sci-fi, the science fiction is extreme, as in totally out of this chart, out of this current world science. Other films also have a quite of out there science scenario, even something like The Matrix, but don't really explain it. We, the audience, just go along with it. And then something like The Beyond is a really great example where they do really explain the science within the realms of the film. So what do you want to talk about with the science of cosmos?
Well, let's run out. Look, I really love the whole Arecibo message thing.
Yeah.
Like it was...
I did too.
The point that I really liked about it was created in like a golden age of space optimism.
Yes.
So during the 70s, 60s, 70s, the moon missions, the Apollo, Voyager, they were all, Star Trek. It was all very positive. And in 1974, the Arecibo message was sent. And it was a pretty basic sort of message, 1,679 bits of data, a bit being a 0 or a 1. And it was sent out from Puerto Rico, which is where Arecibo is. You'll recognize Arecibo. It's the big dish in the crater that you see in Contact and in GoldenEye.
Yep.
And you see it in a couple other bits and pieces. I can't remember, but they're like the big ones that you recognize it from. And in 74, it was commissioned and they went, hey, you know what? We can do this is really powerful. We can send a relatively powerful signal off to a star that is 25,000 light years from Earth.
Yeah.
Like so. And I'm wondering if they did that just in case. Do we really want to send it to one that's only 4 light years away? Because we could get a message back in sort of 8 to 10 years. That might be scary.
Yeah.
25,000 light years. Yeah. No, it's 50,000 year return message, not a problem.
But it would affect us.
But it was sent out as an example of the transmitting and receiving capabilities of this station.
Yeah.
But in order to promote it, why miss a good opportunity for promotion? It was done as an alien message to aliens. Now, this message was designed by Frank Drake, who was then at Cornell University. He is renowned for the Drake equation, which I've spoken about previously. The Drake equation is a way of estimating the number of intelligent, communicative civilizations in the galaxy.
Nice.
So, and it leads to a certain paradox or two. And then also Carl Sagan and some others, which are, don't have big fancy names that we all understand. And Carl Sagan, he is a astronomer. The reason we know about him really is because he was quite a science educator. He was, on TV. I think he actually had a TV program called Cosmos. I'm wondering if there's a relationship there. But yeah, so this message was 1679 bits. It was done in, 73 by 23?
Right.
Rows and columns. And the reason for that is because they're both prime numbers.
Yeah.
And so when you multiply them together, you get oh my goodness me. I've got a friend in Canberra who's a mathematician, and he would be cranky at me for forgetting what it's called. And I'm looking at my notes and I can't see it there. But anyway, so the whole message as a total has the very top row is got the numbers 1 to 10.
Yeah.
And they're written in binary. There's an encoding to it, but it's a binary message. We then have the atomic numbers using that established numbers 1 to 10. We can then they use those same numbers then to give out the atomic numbers for hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and phosphorus, which is what makes up DNA.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the chemical formulas for DNA itself. There's an estimate of the number of DNA nucleotides in the human genome. There's like a little, let's call it a stylized graphic of the double helix, but obviously with only a few little blobby bits, it's, you got to be a bit imaginative. But then it has the physical height of an average man, not a woman, because we all know that only men get used in science for some unknowable reason.
We do.
Luckily, there's not that big a difference. I don't think there's a significant difference in height between average men and women anyway, not that aliens would notice. And then there's also the number of the population of Earth. We then have a little kind of a pixel graphic of the solar system with the third dot raised up to show where the message comes from. And then there's like kind of a stylized picture of the Arecibo telescope itself.
Right.
And of course its physical diameter of 305 meters.
Right.
So this was sent out at 2380 megahertz. So you remember this message they received back was at 1420.
Yeah.
And this was done shifting by 10 hertz, so a very small, it's a very narrow band that's been sent out, which is quite important. Because you notice in this movie, when he's scanning, he sits on the 1420.63 or whatever, and he goes off just by a few tenths of a point.
Yeah.
And he loses the signal and goes back. And the importance of that is in space where no one can hear you scream, astronomical noises are very noisy. They cover wide bands. So quasar or pulsar, which was, pulsar was what was suggested as being the source of this information signal. They cover a very wide band. Like, if you sit at one frequency and hear the pulsar, you could shift off that frequency a long way, megahertz, and still hear it. So it's significant to have this very narrow band of communication, because if you're not exactly on 2380, if you're just off by 11 hertz, you won't get this message.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's what it was. It's a semi-prime. That's what it is, a semi-prime number, the product of two prime numbers. Anyway.
Bloody interesting, mate.
Yeah. So then the reason I say this is a period of optimism, because it was also when we sent the Pioneer plaque out. So Pioneer satellite, Pioneer 11, is the first thing that we've ever sent out of our solar system, and it carries a gold-plated plaque. You'd recognize it if you saw the picture. It's got a man and a woman. It's sort of got a little picture of the solar system with a satellite flying off from it.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. So that was 1972. Then there was the Voyager Golden Record. So Voyager was sent out in 1977, and it's just leaving. It hasn't left our our sun's gravitational effect yet, but it's getting there.
Yeah.
But it's got a golden record, and a little stylus to play it with, and instructions on how to set it up and how to play the recordings on it. It's like a little. It's got music and talking and encoded images and so forth. But nowadays, what are we setting up there? A freaking Tesla. Not as interesting, I think. So through the 70s, we had this great burst of optimism, which I think we've kind of lost. It's become really commercial now. Now it's not reaching for the stars, furthering humanity. Now it's rich people having holidays in space, which is...
That's right.
I mean, that's kind of cool in its own way.
Why not?
But not as exciting, I think, as what it used to be.
No.
But that is the Arecibo message and the associated messages and optimism around that period.
Nice.
Oh, I might also say there actually was an apparent response in 2001. Crop circles. Turned out to be a massive hoax, of course. But maybe it inspired the Weavers to come up with this story.
Yeah, that's right.
And next week's episode, Big 72,
is Don't Look Up.
your Leo.
Leo DiCaprio, Meryl Streep, a couple
Me-
other great actors.
I'm in it. I swear to God, I must be in there. I mean, if Leo's in there, I must be in there.
Yeah. Anyway, I haven't seen it. I look forward to a bit of a hot topic, that film at the moment, around the traps. Apparently,
I've been hearing a lot of people
about it.
A lot of people talking about it.
Well worth. Yeah, let's have a look at it and see what you think. Tune in next time and hear what we think about it.
Bye.
Bye bye.